right, folks, I'm going to break down everything that I need to wash and style my hair today. I'm starting off with a set of alligator clips. These are by Vernon Francois. They don't happen to be in production still, but you can find similar alligator style clips. The reason that something like this is critical is because it actually has the space and articulated top so that it can hold on to denser hair, right? I'm gonna move on to my super biotic oil. That's from I Dig Your Hair. You're gonna see how I use that. Don't get afraid at the fact that I said oil. I'm gonna be using it sparingly and with intention. I'm moving on to my Refresh multi-use cleansing milk. That's also by I Dig Your Hair. That's gonna be my clarifying wash. I'm gonna use that sparingly so that I can kind of amp up my cleanse in areas that have gotten a little bit funky. Next, I'm moving on to my sulfate-free shampoo. That's by Love Your Curls. This one happens to be the fragrance-free version. I'm using both the shampoo and the conditioner. These are really two core products in my routine. I've also got my Monii Cape, which makes things so much more comfortable when it comes to especially the styling component. And to top everything off, I've got my Get It Curl Texture Defining Foam. That's what I'm going to be using to style my hair today. That's my one styling product. So it's time to get it going now that I have all my tools in front of me. Okay, so it's 2025 and I'm coming to you with a new version of my cleanse, condition, and styling and drying of my hair. The last time I did this was, I'm going to go with maybe 2012. So it needed updating. Listen, in reality, my process isn't that different than it used to be in terms of I'm pretty simply just washing, conditioning, styling and drying my hair. But I think it's important to kind of go through how some of the elements have become a little bit more nuanced and the products that I have access to have changed over time. So I've already gone through the products that I'm using. My hair that we're looking at right now is day 4 hair. I live in a climate that is relatively dry, but it is the summer. So for me, realistically, just with my body and my scalp health, I don't like pushing my wash much more than 4 days. If I need to, I can kind of make it last 6 or 7, but my scalp and my hair are a lot happier in the long run, and I'm able to maintain, length and health of my hair a lot more effectively if I get things closer to the 4-day, sometimes even 3-day mark if I'm working out a lot. So, first things first, I don't want this to be a process that feels laborious for anybody watching this. My hope is that by making this video, I can show you some hacks and ways that I have learned over my 14-year salon career to make things more efficient and hopefully less painful and maybe even enjoyable of a process. So I'm gonna start off before I actually wash my hair by taking my hair ties out, and I happen to have a couple in here. It's a little trick that I use to make my ponytail look fuller, but I'm taking my 2 hair bands out. And before I get into the shower, even when I'm at home, the first thing that I'm doing is actually taking a minute to feel my scalp and massage my scalp. Something that I can use in conjunction with this massaging process to help stimulate my scalp and also, frankly, to break up the sebum and funk that has accumulated over the week, sebum being the natural oil that our scalp secretes. I like to use, in this case, just a couple of drops of my I Dig Your Hair Super Biotic oil. This is a combination of Abyssinian camellia seed, chia seed, baobab, grapefruit seed oil. It's got palmarosa and geranium in it. So this oil that I'm using, and you can see I spread it across my hands, the first thing that I'm doing is actually then going in with those kind of oily fingers and using the oil that's not a super heavy oil. It's an oil that blends in and kind of emulsifies into my skin very easily. I'm using this to help break up any areas that feel like they have a residue, or sometimes it can feel like a waxiness. I have a lot of guests that think that they have either seborrheic dermatitis or a similar scalp condition, and the reality is that a lot of them, they're just not actually engaging with their scalps completely because they can't access their scalp due to tangling issues or thoroughness issues, or even the shampoo that they're using is tangling their hair over time. Sometimes the products that they're using to style their hair are also exacerbating. So I happen to keep my nails short because of the work that I do. I like to gently massage, and sometimes I'll even kind of lightly, and I'm not scratching hard, but I am making sure that my scalp gets some attention and that anything that has accumulated there over the last few days gets a chance to be softened. I don't know if any of you ever wear makeup and have removed it with oil, but this is a similar kind of process in that I'm basically using the oiliness on my hands to soften and break up some of the oiliness on my scalp, so that when I then get into the shower and use my shampoo, all of this product and sebum, oil, environmental factors like we live in an area that has super hard water, so that all of that rinses off with more ease. That's the goal. I will also occasionally incorporate my brush during this, and it's one of my favorite things to do. Sort of, instead of using nails or something like super abrasive, the brush that I'm using actually has very malleable teeth that move a lot, and so I can use these bristles, this or even something like a shampoo scrubber, something like this that has soft scrubbers. I can use these, and especially love using them at my hairline, which is where, I wash my face every day, and sometimes makeup will get into that area. And when I'm doing this in my own bathroom, I'm like not upset at all if I see flakies, because the reality is that I've been wearing styling product on my hair, and that when it combines with sweat and oil has a bit of a film, right? And so by doing this, I'm helping to break that up and soften everything, so that again, when I get in the shower, it's easier to come off. I'm not sitting in front of my mirror, which probably would have made this a little bit easier, but another thing I will do is just simply part my hair and then go along those part lines and again, comb or brush my hair. This has been a practice that has, for me, really rejuvenated the amount of density that I have. Around 2019, like a lot of folks, I experienced a lot of trauma and grief and sickness, and as a part of that, I lost a lot of the density of my hair. So I just didn't have as many hairs growing out of my head. In response to that, I did a big chop in 2021. And for those unaware, that was the process of removing all of the damaged, broken, compromised hair on my head by going down to a very short haircut. In my case, it was like a number 2 or 3 on the clipper. I shaved all of that off and I started fresh. I used to be really afraid of the concept of that. But now that I have done big chops so many times in my life, both as a consumer and as a hairdresser, I'm no longer like afraid of them, because I know exactly how long it takes for my hair to grow back in and what the process looks and feels like. So yeah, that's the long and short of that. You don't have to take a ton of time doing this before you get in the shower, but I honestly like to take, 3 to 5 minutes to do my massaging and my comb work or my brush work. And I just find that that also lets my hairstyle last oftentimes like up to an additional day or two. So that's something that I find to be more than worth the 3 to 5 minutes that I spend while the water is heating up in my shower. Yeah. Next step is if I were in my bathroom, I'd be getting in the shower and I'd be getting my hair wet. So I'm gonna pop on over to the shampoo bowl, get my hair wet, and then I'm gonna come back here with damp hair to show you how I shampoo. All right, got my hair wet. Right now, hello, you can see I'm wearing this nifty cape around my shoulders, and it's one of my favorite things that I have gotten to make a part of my practice in the last year. This cape is made by Monii, M-O-N-I-I, and it's great because it is literally designed to help you keep your stuff clean while you style your hair or do your makeup. I took my shampoo and I put some on my hand. I rubbed that between my hands. The reasoning is so that I can spread this on a large surface area of my hair. This is the exact same motion that I'm taking in the shower. I will also even sometimes kind of part my hair slightly. That way I know it's evenly distributed across my head of hair. The next thing that I do, and I think, I remember when I first released a video showing how I do my hair and people were like, what are you doing? Why are you brushing your hair? And I'm brushing my hair because I want not only to start the detangling process as early as possible, but I want to make sure that my cleanser is spread evenly across my hair. You can see that the shampoo that I'm using has a lot of what we oftentimes refer to as slip. Slip meaning ability to move through my hair with ease. You see how in, just a minute here, I've completely effectively detangled this side of my head. I can start at the bottom and work my way to the top. You also saw that I started in my bang area on the other side up here and then worked my way down. So I think that unpopular opinion, first time I'm doing one in this video, I think that unpopular opinion, how you detangle your hair really has to do a lot with your personal preference and the ergonomics of your body and what feels comfortable for you to do in your body. This brush that I'm using, because I showed you earlier, it has such flexible teeth. If I hit a snag or an area with a tangle, the great thing about this is that it gently works that tangle out, similar to kind of the motion of my hands if I were, for example, hand detangling. But if I were hand detangling this, it would take so much longer and frankly would not be as efficient. I think that when I first started doing this work in 2011, everybody was very caught up in the idea that you couldn't use tools in any way because they would cause breakage. And the reality is that the tools that we had at the time were pretty harsh. We had brushes with very little flexibility. Most people were using a Denman brush or a very rigid detangling brush, or they were using a shampoo sort of wide tooth comb. And, you know, when people come into my salon and they say, hey, I use a wide tooth comb, I encourage them to think about how when that wide tooth comb hits a snag, it just tears your hair right out. And, you know, you can see I haven't gone back for more shampoo. I'm just kind of using what I have and distributing that around my head, and again, massaging my scalp, because, you know, the reality is that cleansing our hair and our bodies is a combination of the products we use and the motions that we take. I could also use my shampoo scrubber at this stage to really help get into areas for me, like above and behind my ears, where I oftentimes will experience extra sweatiness and residue. And even in the nape of my neck, that can be really nice too, because that area also gets kind of funky. And so I just want to make sure that I'm really being thorough, you know, with my wash. I do have some folks that will double wash. I have other folks that will strategically use something like my I Dig Your Hair cleansing milk. This is Refresh, and I like to use this. It's got a great pointed nozzle, but I can use this very strategically and kind of dot it on my scalp and around my hairline, and that helps me to kind of kick up the cleansing factor. This one has a bit more of a clarifying component to it than the hair on my face driving me crazy, than the Love Your Curls brand. So I like combining the two so that I can use them for maximum impact. When I'm in the shower, once I've spent just a couple minutes massaging, at this stage, I'm effectively, ready to shampoo, or I'm sorry, to rinse my hair clean. Like I was saying, some people that I work with like double washing. I don't usually find myself having a ton of need to double wash my hair. The longer I wait to wash my hair, the longer or the more inclined I might be to need to double wash. But for the most part, I'm usually just kind of washing once thoroughly. And if I kind of want to half it, then I can half energy it is what I mean. Then I can do a double wash. But in either case, I don't want to be using like heaps of product. So that's why I like using things that are much more concentrated, so that I don't have to be using mounds of shampoo or mounds of conditioner in order to have an effective experience. So one of the nice things about the Refresh cleansing milk by I Dig Your Hair is it has a touch of, I want to make sure that I'm speaking accurately. I want to say it's eucalyptus in here. It's got spearmint. Yep, it's got spearmint and mint. And so it has a little light tingle, nothing that feels crazy, but it feels nice and clean. It has a light scent that dissipates really quickly. So it's a multi-use product. That's one of my favorite things, especially along with this Love Your Curls shampoo. I find the Love Your Curls shampoo to be kind of like a daily driver for a lot of my guests. They find that it works across a range of environments, and we love that. So now I'm going to rinse my hair out and I'm going to condition things. All right, cuties, moving on to conditioner. So now that I've rinsed the shampoo, aka cleanser, out of my hair, I'm going to come in and do my conditioner. I know that my hair is rinsed thoroughly of cleanser when I don't see suds in the shower, right? I want to see clean water rinsing out of my head. When I'm at the salon, I will show my guests how much conditioner I'm using, and I think that they usually think I am not thinking correctly, because that's how much conditioner I'm going to use across my entire head. Again, I understand that many people may be accustomed to needing to use way more conditioner to have an impact on their hair. But again, if we are using the right stuff, I really believe we don't need to be using heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps of product to see an impact. If I need to go in and add more, I always can, but I may not need to. The other really critical component with conditioner is making sure that I use ample water. Because I thoroughly detangled my hair during the wash stage, right? When I get to conditioner, it's like not work, right? Of course, everybody has different densities, different patterns, different sensitivities, but I really believe that if we are waiting until the conditioner stage to detangle our hair, it's no wonder that everything feels like a really unpleasant chore, because it's been getting tangled up while you're washing and while you're doing all of these other steps, and it's just too much. I see so many people that are co-washing and pre-washing and doing some kind of scrub on their scalps and all of these steps long before they've kind of reached conditioner, and they're so frustrated because it's just not yielding what they want, and they're just not seeing the ease that they want. And I like being able to show people that, like, cool, we just did 2 steps. You know, we washed, we conditioned. You saw that I also didn't put conditioner on my scalp. For me, that is strategic. I choose not to put conditioner on my scalp because my scalp already secretes oil. It already secretes a natural lubricant. And so I want to really focus my conditioner on the strands of my hair, and I want to leave my scalp clean. I want my scalp to not have stuff sitting on it, ideally, over the course of the week. So when you see me applying my styling product, that might also be something that you noticed, is that when I do that, you know, here in a few, I'll move over to my mirror so I can see what I'm doing. But when I am adding styling product to my hair, I also am not putting that on my scalp. You can see that there's not stuff like dripping all over me. Like, I'm not super messy. These are great because they catch stuff. There's also a pocket in the back to catch long hair so it's drippy. But another, you know, component of that is I'm just not using excessive amounts of product. I can add a tiny bit more if I want to just really know that I'm saturated. But for me, and for my guests and for the people I've worked with, I think that it can be really surprising how little product you need to use if you're using it efficiently. My hair is totally detangled. I don't have any knots or fairy knots, single strand knots, as we sometimes call them. My scalp feels nice and healthy. I'm chilling. And so I'm ready to rinse this out and then simply apply my styling product and dry it. On to the next. Yeah. All right. I've washed, I've conditioned my hair. So final step is I'm going to style it. And well, next to last step, because I'm going to style it and then I'm going to dry it. When I get out of the shower, my hair, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, do I need to flip my head upside down while I'm washing? I don't do any of that. I just wash my hair in a way that feels physically convenient for me. And then I always start my styling down at the bottom and work my way up to the top. I use my little clips to separate things so that I can know exactly what I'm dealing with. And I oftentimes will simply part my hair down the middle so that I can deal with the 2 sides efficiently and effectively. I just put foam on my hand, and now I am combing my foam through. I don't have to do a lot of work because the reality is that since I'm styling my hair with a product that is designed to be used in this way, it doesn't take like tons of effort and manipulation for my hair to like form its natural curl groupings, because that's just what it wants to do, right? This is already the way my hair, you know, wants to move. You're never gonna see me like finger coiling hair. No knock to people who do it. It's just that's not the direction that my hair moves in. And so if I'm doing something like finger coiling it, I'm creating a curl pattern that is not my curl pattern. And that is not my personal goal in doing this work. So I take the next kind of ridge of hair, and again, I am clipping up what I'm not working with. There is a term that they teach us in beauty school, sectioning for control, and well, I don't necessarily love the way it sounds. The principle is sound, right? So I'm now taking that second section or ridge of hair, and I'm making sure again that I'm just thoroughly distributing my product through my hair. Now, can I use a comb? Totally. But I'm gonna get a different end product than if I'm using my fingers to more strategically create curl groupings, right? It gives them some space, lets things move about a little bit more freely. I do like using the brush to kind of ensure that I've gone through everything, and that there's no like little hidden tanglies in there, but there really shouldn't be at this point. So hopefully I can just simply comb through section by section, and I don't want it to take ages. I don't want it to take tons of time. I feel like the process as I'm doing it today is moving a little bit slower than the way it does at home, just because I'm not in my own space and I'm talking through stuff, but hopefully you can see that it's not a process that's taking extraordinary amounts of time. I can also see exactly what I've worked with and what I haven't, and that makes a big difference too, because then I know that my hair is thoroughly attended to all the way through my head. I see a lot of guests that are like, why are things so poofy in the middle, or poofy in one area, or poofy at the top? And it's like, well, because your styling product or the way you went about doing your hair wasn't even across your entire head. You kind of just coat the outside sections with styling product and then move on. And for a lot of guests, this kind of segues into our next section, but for a lot of guests, they are not drying their hair. And the reality is that thoroughly drying our hair, or even at least partially drying our hair, is what it allows us to have a set meaning that we have, mostly dried down that hair in its pattern, and it will be less apt to kind of expand over the course of the week. You can see I've already moved through, sort of about half of my head. Because of my haircut, my hair gets a bit shorter as I move up my head. You'll notice that too, because I have more of a shag in some ways haircut. Another thing that I hear people express is like, oh, when I get to the top of my head, everything is dried out. That's okay. You can use a spray bottle and spray things down. You can come in with something like this, and I can take that spray bottle and look for the hair that I am going to be working on, and I can just give that hair specifically a little bit more water content. And easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Things are nice and hydrated again. and my hair feels like the hair down at the bottom of my head that was super, or that was more wet. Yeah, so that's a way to manage your hair drying out. I will say this section is bigger than I would normally take, so I'm just gonna go ahead and flap that. There we go. That's a lot happier. There we go. One thing I want to point out is that there is not styling product on my skin. You can see that I kind of walk my product up next to my skin, but I am not putting styling product on my skin. I'm taking chunks that feel manageable for me, which I know can feel like kind of a vague, like what does a manageable mean? But the reality is that like sometimes my hands can deal with more hair in them and sometimes they can only process less, and that's okay too. So I'm only taking what feels comfortable for my body. Usually that's a ridge that's about an inch or so thick, and that's cool for me. Same over here, where I'm just gonna split things up a little bit. I've added a little water to that section. And then again, that way, my product also is a lot more even and easy to distribute if I have evenly wet hair or evenly damp hair. When I'm getting more product to put on my hand, I'm not necessarily even getting a full pump every time. I'm just getting kind of like a little pump or a little that feels like my hand is still coated, or like I have enough product covering my hand so that when I run it along the length of my hair, that it will evenly distribute and it will cover that whole length of hair. Rather than taking that in one big chunk where things would have not been evenly distributed, it was a lot better idea for me to split this ridge into more like 3, right? I kind of did like 1, 2, 3. And my parting isn't like crazy exacting. Like I don't have to be hyper meticulous about how I part things. I just want to make sure that I'm thorough. That's more of my concern than anything. Obviously, I'm sitting down to do this, but I want those of you who have limited mobility to remember that you don't have to stand up to do every stage. You can sit down if you need to. And that can make it a lot more sustainable for you to have your hair done or to do your hair at home and feel like you have control over things. I couldn't stand up from start to finish. Like that would not be pleasant for me most days. And so I even sit down to blow dry, at home. I don't shy away at all from having a seat and getting comfortable while I'm doing things. So, to that point, things like the Monii Cape or, tools like clips can just make everything so much friendlier for us on days where our body might need a little bit of a break or a little bit of help in order to get things done without exhausting ourselves. Sometimes guests, while I am styling their hair, this kind of segment of our our meeting, they'll be like, wow, I noticed you're being really thorough. And while I appreciate what they're saying, yes, I'm being thorough, but I'm being thorough so that I can wear this hair for the next 4 days and not have to think about anything. I'd much rather be thorough, once a week so that I can take time off and not have to think about my hair the rest of the week or for a few days. That to me is of great value. And so, yeah, I'd absolutely rather spend a little bit of extra time on this step so that I don't have to go back and reinvent the wheel every day. A lot of people ask me, how do I refresh my hair? And I always feel a little bit I'm uncomfortable almost, because the reality is you shouldn't have to be refreshing it every day. If you have to get into the shower every day to redo your hair, something didn't happen correctly during the initial styling of your hair. That's my personal belief. That's my personal experience. I'm not talking about a little quick refresh of your bangs or a little, 30-second rezhuzh. I'm talking people that are every day getting in the shower or re-wetting their hair and having to redo things. If you have to redo things, I don't think that the process that you initially took was as well suited for you as it could be. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. As I come up to the crown of my head, or where my head starts to kind of round, you may notice that instead of just pulling straight down like I have been, I'm in a way kind of pulling out. The reason being is that allows me to get a nice degree of volume at my root, because realistically my curl pattern starts higher up than if I was just pulling everything straight down. So I will pull it out and then just let it hang. Same deal where I'm still not putting stuff on my skin. You dig? Aside from when my hair sticks to my face. It's a little bit too big. I'm gonna take less. Yeah. I want you to be able to see what I'm doing up here at the top. Because to my earlier point, I want to be really thorough at the crown of my head so that I don't end up with frizzies. You can see that if I do things in the right way, I get nice, defined hair all the way up to my scalp without touching my scalp. I mentioned earlier that you can use your brush for this. There are some times where I will use a brush up at the top of my head, and then I will follow up with my fingers. But again, very much personal preference. The angle at which I'm doing things is a little bit funny. That's primarily just so I can show y'all how I'm kind of, just loosely taking things to the right and the left, just so that my parting looks and feels nice and organic, and so that my curls move in the direction that they grow out of my head. You'll see that sometimes I'll shake my hair, and that allows me to see curls in areas that might be a little bit not as naturally clumpy, or areas that have a tendency to, like, if I were to just do that, things would look straight almost in some areas, even though we know my hair is definitely not straight. So I can just simply shake my curls around, and then you'll start to see that natural wave pattern just kind of pop up a little bit more easily. I oftentimes take significantly smaller sections in this top portion of my head, because this area gets a lot more wear and tear, and it gets manipulated more, it moves around more, it gets blown by the wind and the sun, the water beats down on it when I'm in the shower. So I want to make sure that this top area of my hair really gets a lot of attention and really gets very thoroughly, gone through. I can be kind of lazy almost in the lower sections of my hair, because those areas are naturally more hydrated and they retain water easier, and so I can kind of blow through some of those sections and take bigger chunks of hair. But you'll see up here closer to like my face that I also, take smaller sections. I'm being aware that this area is going to fall into what, is considered my bangs. And so I'm strategically taking clumps of hair and kind of positioning things in a face framing way, so that when my hair is down and dry, it will, ideally kind of lay in the direction that I've placed it while it's wet. One thing that I like to point out, a lot of people notice while I'm styling their hair, or sometimes when they go home and they're styling their own hair and they come back and they're like, hey Kia, I feel like I have two very different densities or patterns or textures on the two sides of my head. And I want you to know that is very normal. Most people express to me some version of like, yo, why is my hair so different on the two sides of my head? And it's because our bodies are not symmetrical, A, and B, most of us are not ambidextrous. Most of us have a dominant hand that we work with. And I notice over time that for a lot of folks, the side that they are, say if they're right-handed, they oftentimes play with the right side of their hair more frequently. Some people sleep on one side, and you'll notice that oftentimes there is a bit of less hair on those sides, or sometimes breakage. I'll even see people that are like, oh man, I never thought about that before, but yeah, I do always twirl my hair on that side, or I do always sleep on that side, right? And so, we don't think about those little actions as being things that have a cumulative effect, but they do. They do. I went up to the front and did my bang area, and then I kind of worked my way back just a little bit so that I can make sure everything is thorough and cohesive. Should be able to see that for the most part, right? Like I don't really have stuff on my scalp, right? If we look around, there's not a lot of product that is like physically touching my body. And that, again, very, very intentional. So before I come in with my dryer here, I'm looking at how my hair lays and thinking about the fact that when I dry it down, it's just gonna be an approximation of what this looks like right now. So if something isn't hitting right now, or if a chunk feels big or something feels heavy, I need to take the opportunity to make sure I like how it looks and feels when it's in this stage, because my dryer is going to dry down this shape. It's going to dry this into my hair. So next step comes the dryer. I'm going to wash my hands off and then I'm going to dry my hair. Dryers, dryers, dryers. Let's talk about dryers. So when we think about drying our hair, we effectively have a couple of options. We have a handheld dryer, and then we have something that's like a hooded dryer. There are at-home versions, there are professional versions. A lot of the effectiveness of your dryer is going to depend on the motor and how strong that motor is and how much air it's pushing through. I've got a couple of different dryers here today to show you. This is my Dyson dryer. It's not the newest model. It's got the diffuser attachment on it, and what a diffuser is, it just takes that air, that direct airflow, and it distributes it amongst smaller pins effectively. So that way that airflow is not as direct. You've got this Dyson. I've also got here with us today this really super beautiful Edree dryer that I've been playing around with here at the salon. Many components of drying your hair also come down to personal preference, but you can see that in both situations, my dryers are easy for my hand to hold so that I can be comfortable while I'm working, and that I absolutely have the diffuser cap on both of them. I will be honest, I don't always dry my hair 100% of the way. Like I said, I live in a pretty dry climate. I'm in San Jose, California, and so for most of the year, it's pretty warm. I can get away with partially drying my hair or mostly drying my hair and then going out into the world. But for some of my colleagues and friends that live in places that are more humid, they need to dry their hair more thoroughly. Again, I like to sit down when I'm doing my hair at home. I'm sitting on the edge of my bed and I'm just chilling like this. I usually have my phone with me in my hand and I'm just sitting with my dryer. So I'll speed things up, but I'll use both dryers so you can kind of see how I'm holding things. Check that out. I didn't even do that part. So it became very obvious that I had skipped an area. And you can see, because that area is clean, but it's diffuse, right? It's not clumped together. And that's because I didn't actually go over that section. And so the nice thing about being thorough with your hair is that if a section has not been addressed, it will be visually evident. You will be able to see, oh gosh, I did not do that part. And so being able to kind of see the forest for the trees is really, really important. Back to our scheduled programming. One interesting thing that I noticed, because the Edree dryer has seemingly a lot more agitation in the airflow, has like more oomph to it. My hair is getting blown around and moved more. For that reason, it's going to have more volume on this side than it does on this side. This side is more clumpy. This side is more expanded already. To combat that, I'm going to dry this other side with the Edree dryer so that things are a little bit more even. I will say that I prefer my hair more compact. So actually, let me reverse course on that. As you can see, I've been drying the left side of my head with the Edree dryer, and I've been drying the right side of my head with the Dyson dryer. Already, I can see a difference in how opened up the curls are on the left versus the right. They're more compact here, they're more open here. The reason being is that the Edree dryer has seemingly the motor pushes more air with that diffuser cap on than the Dyson does. So that means that my hair is getting more agitated on this side. To prevent things from getting big, because I don't want my hair to get super agitated while I'm drying, I'm gonna go ahead and finish both sides with the Dyson to try and keep things more compact. The reason I want them compact is because if I keep them compact during drying, I have more time with my hair. If I wanted my hair bigger and more voluminous immediately after drying, I could absolutely use something like the Edree dryer because I would have bigger hair to start off with, but that's not my goal in this case. getting a lot closer to being dry. One thing to expand on what I was saying before, because this side of my head got blown around more, it's already larger than this side of my set. One little hack that you can do if you find yourself in a situation where maybe things have been dried unevenly, you can actually go back and recoat your hair with a little bit more product. And what that's gonna do is it's actually gonna lay down and weigh down some of those areas that may have gotten expanded or agitated too quickly, or have gotten more voluminous than we may have wanted to begin with, so that it gives some more weight to them. And this method I oftentimes will call double styling or layering of my styling products, but I'm not going back in with a different styler. I'm just simply going back in with the initial styling product that I used and applying a bit more of it to provide some additional defining property to what I'm doing. Now, I'm not gonna have to worry about like redoing this over the course of the week. This is just something that I do when I get to the like near dry stage of my hair. If I catch any areas that aren't feeling like they are weighted down enough or not feeling like they're defined enough, I can take those areas and I can actually put more foam on them and get them to kind of recondense themselves. On this side of my head, because I used a dryer that doesn't blow things around as much, I don't have as much of that taking place. You can see I can just take strategic areas of hair and kind of reposition them, and then my hair, as I dry it, will lay in a way that's more compact, which is what I personally aesthetically prefer, and for functionality purposes too. Just an option available to you. All right, so my hair is dry. I didn't use multiple products to style it. I used 2 different blow dryers at varying points of the service, but realistically, I think that that's a good illustration of the fact that you can use a lot of different tools, but you have to know how to use them. For example, with my 2 blow dryers today, if I only had access to the Edree dryer, I would use it on a lower speed with a low temperature, and that way my hair wouldn't blow around a lot and I could get a great impact. With the Dyson, I can turn it up a bit higher and leave my heat low, and I'll get a great impact. When I'm traveling, I don't usually bring a blow dryer. A lot of the times I just use the little crummy one at the hotel. Why? Because I can always hold my hair with my hand and use that little blow dryer on low. Sure, it's not the fastest process, but it allows me to achieve the same aesthetic while I'm traveling, and I don't have to pack something else in my luggage. I could also, like I was saying, use a hooded dryer. Now, the difference with a hooded dryer, and believe it or not, a lot of my guests have them at home. There are great at-home versions that are relatively collapsible, so they don't take up a ton of space in your house. But the benefit is that it's actively being engaged with like a handheld dryer versus sitting under a hooded dryer, which is allowing you to be more passive in that process and just sit back. A lot of my guests like to use that time to read a book, answer some emails, do something fun on the computer or the iPad. And that way they don't have to be engaging the rest of their body. That being said, if I were sitting under a hooded dryer to dry my hair would not be moving around much at all. And the other challenge is that as my hair has gotten longer, hooded dryers are not, for the most part, capable of drying the longer portions of my hair at the same rate that they're capable of drying that hair next to my head. So for my guests who have density, tons of hair on their head, and shorter haircuts that fall above the shoulder, a lot of those guests really like having a hooded dryer. I will say for my longer haired guests, many of them prefer having a handheld dryer because they can control more of the process around the lengths of their hair. I've even been known to use 2 at the same time. I'll sit under my hooded dryer and then I'll just use my dryer on the ends of my hair so I can kind of like boom, boom, take care of the top and the bottom, and then they all kind of dry in a uniform way and I'm on my merry way for the day. Regardless of how you decide to approach your hair, I want it to be something that doesn't feel cumbersome and that feels like you can get a mastery of it and you can be in control to some degree over how your hair looks and feels. If it feels like it's an extraordinary struggle just to get through your hair, if you're feeling tons of knots and tangling, that could be a really strong indicator that it's actually time for a haircut. And a haircut doesn't have to mean losing a ton of length, but it also might mean that you need to lose some of the length of your hair in order for that hair to actually stay on your head. Believe it or not, I'm constantly cutting my hair, and that's why I was able to grow it from a buzz cut to this length in just a couple of years. And it's by snipping off portions that weren't serving me, that were knotting, that were tangling, because our hair really acts like Velcro and it gets stuck on other curl groupings. And if it's not happy, then those little curl groupings tend to, they break even more and our hair loss ends up being exponential. So I would encourage you, whether you're a client of mine or whether you're just seeing this video because you were looking up different versions of how people wash their hair, please be open to the idea of working with a professional who really knows their stuff. Look at their portfolio, make sure that you see examples of hair that looks like your hair or it looks like a reasonable adaptation of your hair. That's gonna give you hopefully a lot better shot of having a positive hair experience if you do go into the salon and work with a pro. I'm gonna wear my hair like this for probably the next 2-3 days. After that point, usually it's half up and then it goes up farther and then my bangs go back. So you can usually tell what day I'm on based on how back and away my hair is. Another final point that you might have noticed while I was blow drying my hair, because like I said, I was gonna speed that up. So I wasn't touching my hair with the blow dryer tons and tons and tons until my hair was on the drier side. I also wasn't doing any of the sort of signature scrunching that we oftentimes see influencers doing, or people in this sort of curly hair community. I find that for the bulk of my guests, myself included, my hair is amply curly. I don't need to scrunch it in order for more curls to generate. If anything, if I'm scrunching it, I'm actually agitating it, and I'm making it so that those curl groupings are going to split apart. So if anything, touching my hair a lot while I'm drying it would, yes, make bigger hair, but it would make hair that I don't get to live with for as long over the course of the week. My hair is gonna expand. That's what it's gonna do. So if I start off with things more compact on day one like this, that means for me that I can strategically use this hair over the next few days. I can even do this process at night before I go to bed. I can dry my hair thoroughly, and then I can sleep with my hair in this position by using either a curl sock, a buff, a scarf, lots of different options, a gaiter for your neck being pulled back to use as a sort of big headband. I would steer away from bonnets. I know, again, unpopular opinion, I don't love bonnets, because imagine this hair, or really most of my clients' hair, in a bonnet. The hair starts to make the shape of the bonnet. It starts to look bulbous, and that's not what most of my clients are going for shape-wise. Bonnets also have a tendency to rub on our hairline, and knowing that that area is already one of the most susceptible to damage, I'm gonna be really careful about sleeping for 8 hours with something rubbing my hairline, right? So when I'm thinking about how I go to sleep, I want something that's a little bit more gentle and kind of just holds my hair in the position that I want it to lay over the course of the day. So it's not moving around a ton while I sleep, and I can sleep comfortably. That also means that I'm not ending up with a bunch of product on my body, which is great. The only other thing I would mention in this video is that I would really suggest you invest in a shower cap. A lot of folks spend time doing their hair, and then the next day they wake up, they get in the shower, and they don't cover their hair at all. What they're effectively doing by doing that is kind of like you're getting into a sauna, or I always say it's like going to Florida or going to New Jersey and standing around for 20 minutes. But by doing that, your hair is going to expand, because there's going to be a lot of water around it, in the atmosphere around it. And that is why our hair frizzes and fuzzes up, is because it's trying to sort of reach up and get some of that water that's in the atmosphere. So that is my final tip in this video. Again, I hope this was helpful. If you ever have questions at all, just visit thecurlconsultant.com. Again, I'm Kia Faye Donovan, and I hope that you love your hair. And I hope that videos like this can help demystify some of the process. I'm a hairstylist and salon owner. I've been doing this for 14 years. So hopefully some of the tricks that I have learned, I can pass along to others. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. Toodles.